A spy comedy movie released in 2020 has some of the widest range of reviews we've seen in quite a while. It's about a male spy who falls in love and tries to quit the spy business. Of course, we're talking about the 2020 spy comedy movie, Spy Intervention. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
Of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our podcast show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Join us as we decode Spy Intervention. Is it worth a watch? Well, listen to find out what we think. Now, as we tell you often, one of our goals is to enhance your viewing experience with a movie. When we get to the section of this episode where we talk about the positives of this movie, if there are any, we are going to point out one thing that will help you understand what you're watching. What many people call out as a big criticism was, in our opinion, certainly Tom's, a positive and interesting choice by the director, Drew Van. Once you hear us explain it, the movie may make more sense to you. And I emphasize the word may. All right.
Okay, so Dan, you're kind of couching things here. I'm not sure this was your favorite movie.
I don't think I'm couching too much.
And so when I found this thing, I'm like going like, Dan is gonna not like this one at all.
Oh yeah, come on. Are you kidding?
I mean, Spy Intervention, it only has 3.9 out of a 10 rating on IMDb.
I'm
a
amazed.
48% popcorn meter on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, well, I understand those ratings. I actually like this movie better than that. I wouldn't put it at a 8 out of 10, but I think 3.9 is not giving it justice. So
no, I don't think 3.9 gives it justice either, because there are a lot lower numbers than that.
So after listening to this episode, maybe you'll watch it and have a higher rating for it as well. Again, Dan and I tend to differ on comedies, so this is going to be interesting. And yes, this is a quirky spy movie.
Yeah.
And normally when we've decoded quirky spy movies, we differ on which one of us likes which one. All right. So we both like Austin Powers, Arabesque, Central Intelligence, The In-Laws, although we disagree as which version of The In-Laws we like better. Yeah. But we disagreed on Spies Like Us, Number One of the Secret Service, and Undercover Grandpa.
Yeah.
So Dan and I tend to look at these things differently, and Spy Intervention is definitely a lighthearted spy comedy movie. Or Dan, you'll probably say is definitely a spy light on the comedy movie.
Well,
yeah. Now, I'm going to assume, based on how this has started, we don't agree on this one. And I'll admit, this isn't my first choice to watch if you want to see a spy comedy movie.
All right.
But if you haven't seen it and you've seen those others, I think it's worth a watch. We should also point out that this movie was released unrated. It's definitely not for kids with some of the dialogue and sexual scenes, although there's no nudity. Mm-hmm. So, Dan, I like this one. What do you think?
This is a spy comedy. So, yeah.
Very good.
And before you ask, Tom, if this was a spy movie, well, it has the word spy in the title. It opens with some spies doing spy stuff, and there is a spy mission associated with it. So, yes, it is a spy movie.
Yes!
But a spy comedy. And to be honest, calling it either one of those is a stretch.
Wow. It's a spy movie. I mean, I'll let you differ with me on the comedy part, but it's definitely a spy movie. And for me, as I was watching this thing,
yeah,
it started out and I'm going like, oh, this just is not going to go well at all. But the more the movie progressed, I started to like it more and more.
Yeah, okay. I was checking to see how much time was still left.
Okay, now I will admit this is a comedy, but it's not overtly funny. It's not an Animal House or a Blazing Saddles, right?
It's not overtly or overly funny. So I agree with you there, Tom, 100%. That's good.
But I did like the humor it had. I mean, probably because there were some raunchy jokes along the way. You know, I like raunchy jokes.
Okay, I smirked a couple of times at the funniest stuff they had. Okay.
So
I'll give you that.
Okay. So as you can tell, this isn't going to be a totally positive review. But let's dig into this and figure out where.
I'm positive. I'm positive it's a bad movie.
Let's dig into this one and see if we can figure out where we differ, because I actually think it's kind of clever the way they did this.
All right. I'll start with the plot. The plot is that a male super spy named Corey, played by Drew Van Acker, falls in love and tries to quit the spy business. He tells his girlfriend, and eventually his wife, Pam, played by Poppy Delevingne, that he is a cardboard box salesman, which was his cover as a spy. She works in retail as a sales clerk in a cosmetic store.
Okay.
So there's the setup.
I'm going to stop you because maybe this is part of why I liked it.
What?
He said he was a cardboard box salesman. My dad sold corrugated packaging for 40 years. So this could have been my hook into the whole thing.
Corrugated packaging sounds a lot better than cardboard boxes.
Well, somebody's got to design and make the boxes, and that's what my dad did.
Well, they make the most of that cover with the office scenes, I have to say, and the dialogue. But anyway, Corey can't let Pam know he is a spy. Of course, can't do that. So he quits the spy game and he goes out and sells these cardboard boxes for a living, for real. He tries, at least.
See, you've got to have the cover story. You've got to have that figured out, and they let you know what it is right up front here.
Yeah.
I also like when he does this, moving from being a spy into civilian life, if you will. There's a nice callback to Spectre here when they decommission Corey from being a spy, right? So he wants to leave the spy world. They kind of like almost give him a pseudo lobotomy of his spy stuff. And there's a machine that's very similar to the one Blofeld uses on James Bond and Spectre. So I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, they did whatever they could to tie James Bond into this movie, I have to say, over and over again. And not well, though.
Man, this movie is not as bad as you're making it out.
No, it's worse. All right, here we go. So they get married, Pam and Corey, and he's kind of bored with his life. He wants the excitement of the spy world, but he loves his wife, so he tries to make it work. They get into a married rut very quickly. Then this old spy partner, Smuts, played by Blake Anderson, holds an intervention to try to break him of his boring, non-spying life and bring Corey back to the spy world, just when he thought he was out.
Okay, so there's an intervention. They're going to try to get him back, and that's where the title of the movie, Spy Intervention, comes from.
Yeah.
And Smuts, I actually think, is a pretty fun character. At times he's serious, but he often raises the humor level of the movie.
Yeah. Not by much, but okay. Yeah. Yeah. So now, I don't think we need to go too much more into the plot. But when we talk about the pluses and the minuses of this one, really, I guess there are some. We'll bring out
you
a
said
little
you
bit
laughed
more.
a few times.
I smirked a couple of times, I said. I didn't say laughed yet. I might have. I'm laughing more now.
Okay, so if we're going to leave the plot, one thing I will say about this plot is when I was watching it, in the first part of the movie, I was trying to figure out, okay, is this Mr. and Mrs. Smith or is this True Lies?
Uh-huh.
Right? Which movie was the big influence on it? I don't want to give it away, but you'll get to a point in the movie where it's quite obvious which one of those movies takes over in terms of the influence. And it's interesting that it was like, I had to try to figure out which one it was.
Yeah.
It didn't like hit you over the head until you were a little further in.
Yeah. And if either one of those movies had an influence on this movie, it didn't have enough influence on this movie. All right. So here we go.
You're saying those were better movies.
Yeah, absolutely. All
right. All right. So let's talk about what worked with this one then.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So let's start talking with the cast. This is not your A-list cast, although I think it works well together.
We agree again.
Right?
Good.
Corey, the main character, as Dan, you said, he was Drew Van Acker played him.
Mm-hmm.
You may know Drew Van Acker from the TV series Pretty Dirty Secrets, where he played Jason De Laurentiis.
Huh.
Now, Van Acker has to play this part where he has two different personas. He's Corey the spy and Corey the boyfriend / husband. And I think he's a good casting for this role because he looks the part. He has just enough cheekiness to make the comedic parts of this movie work for me.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm going to hold my comments back so far on this one. But all right. The next cast member is Poppy Delevingne. Spy movie fans may remember her in her role as Clara in Kingsman: The Golden Circle. In Golden Circle, she's Charlie's girlfriend, the one that Eggsy calls to get permission to sleep with at the Glastonbury Festival. Well,
that is a funny scene.
it is. All right. Here she has to play a very idealistic, quiet, just trying to make it all work kind of woman. She works in a cosmetic shop, has ideas as to what it means to have a suburban home, and has to do some sleuthing of her own at one point in this movie. Delevingne has gotten some criticism for this role, but I think that was the writing. And I think we can say that pretty much throughout the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I thought she seemed pretty believable in this one. Yes, there's some campiness to her role, but she kind of makes that work for the most part, I think. Her idealism gets her into a bit of trouble, though. But Poppy does a good job portraying this role, I have to say. Though I must say also that she looks so much older than Drew Van Acker, even though I think she's actually a year younger.
Wow, you actually said that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
she's a month younger than Van Acker.
Yeah.
And they're
Okay,
supposed
so
to
there
be
you
in
go.
their mid 30s, which I think she looks like. But I will give you that Van Acker does look like he's in his late 20s.
Yeah, he
But
looks very young. So it's
I
not
mean,
her.
yeah, I want to make sure you're not implying that she looks old. You just think she looks
He
older
looks
than Van
young.
Acker.
He looks younger than her.
Yeah, that's a better way to put that.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay. Now, there is a decent supporting cast here, too. Some to highlight are Blake Anderson, who plays Corey's partner, Smuts. What a great name. This role seemed like a lot of it was based on the character Drew in Office Space. So if you've seen
okay.
that movie, there's a couple other things that kind of feel like Office Space-ish as well, mainly around the cardboard company.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. Okay, I think there were moments he was very good, and other moments that I thought he wasn't all that good. Again, maybe it's the writing or the directing. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, I'm going to blame it on the writing, but I'm going to surprise you here. This was not written by Purvis and Wade, and I'm going to still knock the writing.
And you're still not going to write it.
I'm
Okay,
still
all right.
knocking it. All right.
All right.
The next supporting cast member I want to call out is Brian Seka, who plays Corey's bearded coworker Bob
Mm-hmm.
when he's at the cardboard box company. He plays this role that's kind of I like my suburban life kind of guy, right? Each of Corey's coworkers has played well, but for me, Bob is the best role in this group, in part because of Seka's performance.
Yeah, I think he was pretty consistent throughout the movie, and I agree he was the best of Corey's friends. Yeah. Now, Dave Sheridan plays Corey's boss at the cardboard box company and plays this funny role in a very understated way. We think he was very good in this role because you can get what he is about instantly. And we've all known bosses like this. So,
Well, Dan, you were my boss. You were my boss once. I don't know. Were you like this?
yeah, I don't know. You judge. All right. Brittany Furlan plays Brianna, and I think she's one of the highlights of the movie. She's Pam's party girlfriend. She is constantly looking to go party, have sex, and tell Pam to dump Corey. To me, again, I think she was a very good character, and Brittany played her to a T. Perfect, really. She was the best character in this movie for me. Believable and consistent. Great. She was
Well,
terrific.
and I like the fact that she had some good raunchy lines.
She did, and she delivered them perfectly and within character, and you had no doubt it was the character speaking.
Okay,
It
we're
was
not going to say what it is, but what she yells out to the guy who had an Amex black card,
great. Yeah.
that was pretty good. That was
There were
one
a
that
couple
actually
good
made
lines.
me laugh out loud.
There were a couple good lines. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's Natasha Bassett. She almost steals the movie in her role as Alexandra, the female spy that Corey gets paired with for the main mission in the story. Alexandra is one of the main sources of outlandish humor in this movie. She's enthralled with sex and walks around in some pretty skimpy outfits. But there's a
Darn.
But a nice touch was when they showed her sitting down and reading the book Unsolved Problems in Astrophysics, which is a real book, by the way, by John Bacall and Jeremiah Ostreicher. I mean, so props there. That was good. That was kind of cute. That was
Yeah,
good.
she
It's
wasn't just this beauty, right?
Right.
There was more there. Right.
Yeah, okay.
Now, you have to love the outfits she wore. I mean,
Well, they were
she
good.
had to wear a bulletproof bikini. That thing
Just in-
couldn't have provided a lot of protection.
just in case you get shot there.
Yeah. Right. Now, after the cast, I think the humor was positive for the movie. It wasn't over the top, but I found myself laughing out loud. And I
Hmm.
don't laugh out loud all the time when I'm watching a movie. So to me, this is a positive.
Well, it
Uh,
would be, yeah.
would be. Well, you said you laughed too. Now this, and I think part of it is the movie doesn't take itself too seriously. And I think they're having fun presenting this quirky kind of humor.
Yeah, they are. The humor? Oh, yeah, right. It is a comedy. There were two scenes, though, where I did laugh a little because the lines were delivered so well and so consistent with the character, and those were both delivered by Brittany Ferlin as Brianna. To me, the rest of it was like trying to squeeze toothpaste back into the tube. I don't know.
Oh
It was,
man. Now, we should say that reading some of the reviews, many of the people didn't get the humor in this movie. I did, but
well, okay, yeah, well, yeah, there you go.
I can understand it's a type of humor that isn't for everyone. Now, I also think it's funny how you and I tend to differ on these things. We laugh a lot at the same things, but we do have very different senses of humor, and it shows up when we decode these type of movies.
Yeah. All right. Next, there were some clever callbacks and influences from other movies. And first, there were a lot of references to James Bond and his team throughout this movie. It's okay the first time, but there are many times because I think they wanted to say, hey, this is a spy movie. And geez, we know the best current spy movies are Bond movies. So there you go. It comes up a lot in this movie. They even get in a call out to Mission Impossible once. So that's like, okay, they're
Yeah.
trying.
There definitely are. And for Carmen Sandiego fans, at one point in the movie, Pam appears to be channeling Carmen. Her clothes are a little bit different color, but it's quite obvious who she's parroting.
Okay. All right. Next, because Corey had to work in a cardboard box sales office, some of the sales tropes they included were classic, and they had nice spins on them, so they weren't total straight ripoffs. That part I thought was pretty well done.
Okay, and for me, the best sales movie ever was David Mamet's Glengarry Glen Ross.
All right.
That thing
That's
started out
great.
as a play, it was adapted for the screen, and one thing they added in the movie version was what of Glengarry Glen Ross was what I'll call the coffee is for closers soliloquy by Alec Baldwin. That
Yeah.
wasn't in the play, but it was in the movie. Now,
Yeah.
parts of that speech are quoted in almost every sales office I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And in Spy Intervention, some of the tropes from the sales parts of Glengarry Glen Ross are there. Plus, a part of Baldwin's soliloquy is there, but it's used very different. And I thought it was a nice callback without being a direct copy.
Yeah. That was good. And I think the humor of all the office scenes actually was the best part of the intended humor. And anyone who's been in sales has had a sales manager with some of Rick's qualities, has had the non motivated members of the sales team, and will recognize the contests, which were cool. All right. That was a highlight for me for this movie because I spent most of my life in sales and marketing. So I have seen it all.
Okay, so this is a spy, a lighthearted spy sales movie.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. All
All
right.
right. Now,
I agree with that.
I also like the way they portrayed the dull, boring, married suburban life. They
Yeah.
play off for some mundane things like dinner parties.
Yes.
For some reason, Pam has a thing about dinner parties. And they also kind of talk about why guys like to go bowling. The way they do it is this is stuff that's you'll see more in the suburbs than in the city. And I think this whole suburban theme was done tongue in cheek. And for me, it worked. This is where we get the callback to the movie. I think we influenced this one the most. We mentioned two up front, Mr. and Mrs. Smith and True Lies. One of them was a very heavy influence on Spy Intervention. And I'm going to give you a big hint. Spy Intervention has a couple of dance scenes.
Okay. All right.
Hopefully that didn't give it away.
Yeah. Spy Intervention has some non spy related themes as a big part of the movie, and we think they pretty much handled it well. Yeah, it's a spy movie, but the theme of balancing personal life with professional needs is a big one in this movie, especially when trying to hide your real professional life from your spouse. We often see the lonely spy or the one night stand spy. Here we get a spy who gets married and loves his wife. We saw the same thing with Ethan Hunt and Julia in the Mission Impossible series. It was such a conflict for them, that for Julia's safety, Ethan had to let Julia go. Well, here in Spy Intervention, there's a big conflict around this theme, but we're not going to tell you how it all worked out.
Yeah, you got to watch the movie to find out some of this stuff.
Yeah, if you want.
All right, now the theme of deciding who is the you that you want to be also comes up. Both Corey and Pam have this dilemma, and they handle it differently. It's also different in Jason Bourne because he finds out who he is and has to figure out what path he wants. But here in Spy Intervention, Corey has to figure out if the you he wants to be is a married spy, and Pam has to figure out what to do for her career. We think this is a great theme for a movie like this because it makes you think a little bit.
Yeah, it makes you think a little bit, the little part. Yeah. and along with that, love and sacrifice are obviously the big themes in this movie. They don't dwell too much on the love, but the sacrifice is played up big. Finally, the theme of a high adventure versus stable lifestyle is a key theme. The whole suburban dullness they portray with humor really does call this out. Remember, this movie was released in 2020. Most spy movies in the 2000s are action movies first, with a spy story second. Here, there is some limited action and high adventure for Corey, but he chooses a stable lifestyle, or at least at first. Which would you choose? I know what I would choose in terms of this movie. Skip it.
All right. So one of the things that was a highlight for me drew a lot of criticism. And it was the use of screen resolution for the movie.
Oh, yeah. I know where you're going.
So most reviews of Spy Intervention point out the differences in the resolution and just say, oh, I hated that. Some people think it's a distraction. Some people thought it was too like, oh, it's a college project or something like that. To me, I think it was a positive. It was a risk, but while you're watching it, you're going to notice the screen resolution change from 4.3 to 16:9. And many people are bothered by this.
That's the most exciting part of the movie.
What'd you think of it, Dan?
All right, yeah. I noticed it and thought, okay, I see what they're doing here, but I'm not really sure it really enhanced anything for me in the movie.
Okay, now for me, I thought I liked it. And yes, it was definitely a choice. All of the scenes that were, I'm going to put in quotes, spy scenes, were presented in a 4:3 format. And that's the almost square portrait resolution of the old TV sets.
Yeah.
And so the non-spy scenes were presented as a 16:9 or widescreen.
Yeah. I get it, but I say big deal. I mean, it's a clever attempt to be clever. That's what I thought.
Okay, so you're on the negative side of the screen resolution, or are you more just ambivalent about it?
I don't think it adds anything to the movie. I think they tried to add something to the movie with it, but I don't think it works. I just think
okay. Then that's where we differ here, because I thought it was nice because they're cutting back and forth between the personas, if you will, of the spy stuff versus the not. So it did make it easier for me to see. Some people were put off for it. You obviously were ambivalent to it, but I think it was a positive.
I think we could tell what the spy scenes are without them telling us, oh, I got to change the format to tell you what the spy scene is.
Well, sometimes you gotta help, or you think you have to help the audience along.
Yeah.
Think about the movie, or maybe the person, the actor along, because think about the series of Man on the Inside, and the documentary it was based on, The Mole Agent.
Yeah.
The main character wanted to do something to show if he was being Charles or Sergio, the spy, based on what he was wearing. And here in Spy Intervention, they used resolution to do the same thing.
Yeah.
You say they were trying to be clever. I thought it worked out.
Yeah. No, they did it much better in The Mole Agent than they did here. I mean, this was, I thought this was, I don't know, they were trying to be clever, and I give them credit for trying. All right, Let's talk about the negatives, because not like we haven't yet, but there are more.
Right, and I'll start with the reviews. The reviews in this thing, there was one that just said probably the worst movie of the century.
Wow.
And I just totally don't agree with that. I understand it, because if the humor is not your kind of humor, you're not going to like this movie. Many of the reviews commented on how they bailed on the movie after 10 to 15 minutes. And if you remember, I said the longer I watched it, the more I liked it. For the first 10 or 15 minutes, I was like, what am I watching here? Plus, as we mentioned, many people didn't like the resolution changes. Now, to me, that kind of all added together. And the longer I got into this movie, the more it made sense to me. The humor made sense. And the resolution changes made sense.
I could see that the longer you got into the movie, the happier you were with the movie because you were getting closer to the end. So, all right. Once again, pacing issues, huh? Oh boy, that raises its ugly head when discussing any kind of spy movie. It happens all the time. And hey, look, I think these critiques are pretty solid. It's not the worst spy movie of the century. That would take some doing.
There you go.
But it is light years away from one of the best. So, all right. Some people didn't like the casting, with some not liking Van Acker as Corey. Okay, you liked him. I thought it was good.
I did too.
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. As we said earlier, we thought he worked in this role. But this is one of those taste things. You know, you like him or you don't. We understand why some will disagree with us here, liking him versus not liking him. We can differ on whether we thought he was a good hire for this one, but that's okay.
And I thought he was a good hire.
Yeah, others thought Pam's role was underdeveloped. Most, but not all, of the reviews that commented on Pam were about the role, not on Delevingne's performance. So, okay, that's writing, that's whatever. Yeah, the writing could have been one heck of a lot better in this movie.
Well, and that's one of the common themes in the reviews, are the writing and direction was poorly executed. Some thought the plot was boring, and we agree the writing and direction were not the movie's strong suit.
Yeah.
To us, a movie you have to grow into as it progresses can be problematic.
Yes.
I know I almost bailed on this thing about 10 minutes into it.
Yeah, then 20 and 30 and so on. Yeah. I'm glad I stuck with it only so I could understand how this is not one of the best movies to watch.
See, now for me, I'm glad I stuck with it because I liked it more as it went on.
Yeah,
and I think the style of humor took a minute to kind of get.
Yeah. The director, Drew Van doesn't have a lot of experience. Spy Intervention was his first feature movie after directing 5 short movies. Then he directed Last Survivors and the TV series Small Town Big Story. So he was raw here with Spy Intervention, and it shows. Now, the writing was handled by Mark Famiglietti and Lane Garrison, who also has a supporting role in Spy Intervention. Both of these writers have many more acting credits and only 4 writing credits to their background. So we think they could have used some help in the writing of this movie.
I agree with you on it. Dan, something we agree on this movie.
A lot of help.
So let's sum things up. Spy Intervention is a movie you're going to have to give time to develop. It can't be trope-filled and has some nice, wholesome themes around trying to figure out your life. That said, there are some raunchy jokes, but no nudity. And I'll reiterate, this unrated movie is not for kids.
Right.
So if I like this one, and if you like what I was saying today, I think you're going to like it.
Yeah. All right. I think that this is a movie. And if you have an extra hour and a half and some change, then, hey, listen to a couple more of our podcast episodes instead of watching this movie.
Okay.
All right.
We're definitely in disagreement on this one.
All right. That's a wrap of our decoding of Spy Intervention. Let us know if you watched this movie after this episode and what you thought of it. Just please give it 20 minutes before you bail. Or not. All right, this has been Dan.
And Tom.
Of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our podcast show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Do us a favor, tell a friend about our show, and subscribe. That's how you can really help us out, and it's free. Thanks for spending time with us. We do appreciate it. Thanks.